Hello, Aphasia family. I'm sitting here with our very own Dear Abbe. She is one of my very favorite speech pathologists. She's very committed to people with aphasia and their caregivers. As you know, I live in North Carolina. She lives in North Carolina too. So, hey, Dear Abbe, how are you today?
I'm good, Carol. How are you?
Good. Hey, I have a question somebody sent in. Hint, hint. The rest of you can send questions in because we're going to start this new Dear Abbe series. So
I'm just,
here,
I'm
okay.
just gonna, I just need to make sure that we differentiate our Dear Abbe, just to make sure that you all know that it's Dear Abbe, but my Abbe is just with an E. You may be used to the Abbe column in the newspaper with a Y, but we're keeping the format the same, just changing the vowel.
Okay. So here's our question for Dear Abbe today. So this question was written by someone referring to their young son, but I honestly think it relates to anybody with aphasia. Let me know what you think. She wrote, and a lot of people will identify with this. She said, my son is embarrassed by his aphasia, and he misses out on socializing with his peers. What can I do to help him?
Just going to write the word embarrassed. So we are focused on the emotion that this brave person wrote in. And thank you for sharing it with me. I love questions about feelings and emotions because sometimes there are aspects of aphasia that are often overlooked when language makes it hard to reveal someone's feelings or the details about how they feel. And not all speech pathologists or other professionals might consider talking to someone about their feelings because they assume it would be hard for them to reveal. But the first thing I would say in this situation is how great it is that the word embarrassment is being acknowledged. And if and when those feelings are denied or repressed, more resentment or anger and frustration and isolation that we know happens for people with aphasia can develop. And if I was working with someone who was expressing some varying emotions, I would first really need to get a sense of what their current level of that emotion was. Because someone might infer or expect a certain type or level of an emotion because a person's having struggle emoting it themselves. But a lot of speech pathologists, I hope, use what's called a patient-reported outcome measure. And so to simplify a person with aphasia's ability to express something that might be deeper, we might use pictures or a number or a Likert scale and get a sense of where this person, for example's embarrassment is. Like, well, how embarrassed are you on this scale? Are you so embarrassed that you have to stay home and not go out or meet anybody new? Or you have no embarrassment whatsoever? Or perhaps this is how little embarrassment you want to achieve by our work together. So getting that baseline of just what type and severity of emotion is being spoken of or assumed would be number one. And it might be hard, depending on a person's type of aphasia, for them to reveal that feeling for many reasons. They may be embarrassed to discuss it with their speech pathologist. They may rather avoid talking about it, or they may feel that the type of language support being offered is not conducive to what will help them feel comfortable. So I would hope that anybody who's dealing with someone who feels embarrassed would do a couple of things. They would use different types of what we would consider multimodal communication. The scale is one way. We can have pictures of someone looking or feeling embarrassed. We might hypothesize and say, let's just pretend, like, what would be the worst case scenario and make you feel so utterly embarrassed you would never want to do it again? Or what would be the worst case scenario? And do a lot of role playing together. Hopefully, the person was comfortable with their speech pathologist, that whatever we do in the therapy room, we could then take out into real life and maybe get some communication or care partners to sort of enact what might be embarrassing. What could we do to prepare you so that when you get to a place where there's one peer or maybe multiple, you've planned something or thought something ahead of time to calm yourself, or perhaps prepare something to say or express non-verbally about what it feels like for you to bravely have come into a new situation. And I really have to stress that speech pathologists work on improving communication. And when I read this question that focused more on feelings and emotion than my person with aphasia doesn't speak in full sentences, or I don't understand what that person is pronouncing, I think that is so significant, because we have to consider the whole person, and language is at the core of aphasia, but so are these feelings of empowerment and struggle. And those things can improve with the right support. So addressing it with a speech pathologist as practice and not feeling ashamed would be a great way for that person or any person to then use it with people that matter in their life. I hope that, in a nutshell, and then some, helps somebody figure out what they can do to address and not ignore this type of emotion.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think embarrassment is something probably a lot of people with aphasia feel.
Mhm.
And as most people know, my son had a stroke. And when he was 10, he was very embarrassed to go back to school and do all these things. So the other piece that I would add to what Abby's saying, and I love that she said it's so important to validate and help understand how embarrassed they're feeling and support that as a real emotion and not brush it off. And then the other thing that sometimes it surprises me, how many people with aphasia haven't been told that aphasia impacted their language, not their intellect. So some people are embarrassed, feeling like, well, I'm not as smart as I was.
Mhm.
So I think we as caregivers too can help advocate and let their friends know, hey, aphasia affected my loved one's language. He's still thinking, he still needs his friends. And we all work together to build a more inclusive community. So thank you for that, dear Abbe. So what I'm going to do is, Abbe is a speech and language pathologist. And in the notes, I'll go ahead and I will put a link to her website. And if you have a Dear Abbe question, you can either send it to me and I'll make sure that we get it posted, or you can send it directly to our own Dear Abbe. So thanks so much.
Sure, I'm looking forward to the next question.
This
Feel free
is
to
fun.
send them in with any topic you have in mind. We'll cover it all.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.